If anyone had told me that the man I grew up calling dad, the one who tucked me in at night, the alpha everyone feared, was never my father at all, I would have laughed in their face. If they had told me that one day I would feel my heart race and my wolf stir for him, I would have called them insane. But that's exactly what happened. Swapped at birth, I was never meant to be his daughter. I was meant to be his mate. And the night I turned 16, the truth didn't just destroy my world, it changed everything. Stay till the end of the story to find out what I did after finding out he's my mate. Hello, my dear family. Before we dive into this story, I want to thank you for pressing play and joining me today. This isn't just another werewolf tale. It's a world of secrets, forbidden bonds, betrayal, and destiny. In this story, you'll meet Skyla, a girl raised to believe the alpha was her father, only to discover on her 16th birthday that he is, in fact, her fated mate. You'll witness the pain, the passion, and the shocking truth of a bond that goes deeper than anyone ever imagined, the rare and unbreakable imprint. This audiobook is filled with heartbreak, longing, power struggles, and the burning question. When the person you thought was your father is revealed to be your mate, do you fight it or surrender to fate? So settle in, grab a drink, and prepare yourself for the twists and turns ahead. And before we begin, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Family, I can't wait to see you all in the comments. The story begins now. Prologue. On the night of her birth, tragedy struck. The alpha's long-awaited baby, his only heir, took her last breath before she could even cry. Panic filled the room. The nurse, shaking with fear and knowing the alpha's rage would be merciless, made a choice that would change everything. She stole a newborn from another pack alpha and laid her in the grieving mother's arms. And so, the alpha raised a child who was never truly his. To him, she was his daughter, the light of his life, the pride of his pack. He loved her, protected her, and carried her as his own flesh and blood. But fate is never merciful. The truth was darker than anyone could imagine. On her 16th birthday, the bond revealed itself. The girl he had called his daughter was never his daughter at all. She was his fated mate. And when their eyes met, something even more dangerous ignited, not just the mate bond, but the rare, unbreakable power of imprinting. Chapter 1. Beep, beep, beep. The alarm clock blared with its irritating cry. Skyla groaned and rolled over, blindly slamming her hand down on the noisy machine. It didn't stop. She tried again. Still, the beeping persisted. With an annoyed growl, she finally grabbed it and tossed it across the room. Silence at last. Anyone watching could tell she was definitely not a morning person, especially not on Mondays. And, of course, today was Monday. Dragging herself from the warmth of her bed, she trudged toward the bathroom. She brushed her teeth, tugged her long hair into a ponytail, and dressed for school without much enthusiasm. Her movements were sluggish, the motions automatic. Once ready, she slung her school bag over her shoulder. But before anything else, she needed coffee. Coffee was her lifeline. Too bad her dad wouldn't let her keep a coffee maker upstairs. That would have saved her from stumbling half asleep down the stairs every morning. By the time she reached the kitchen, she looked more like a zombie than a teenage girl. She grabbed her favorite mug and stood there, staring at the brewing coffee as if her entire life depended on it. "Good morning, sweetheart," her dad said warmly as he walked into the kitchen. "M," Skyla replied with a noise that wasn't exactly a word. Talking before coffee wasn't her thing. Once the machine finished, she poured the steaming liquid into her cup, adding sugar and hazelnut creamer before taking her first sip. Pure bliss. 1 cup quickly turned into 2, then 3. Finally, she was awake enough to function like a human being. "Oh, hey, Dad." "Good morning," she greeted him at last, earning a laugh. "All caffeinated and ready to talk now, huh?" Jax teased, his emerald green eyes gleaming with amusement. Skyla grinned at him. Unlike her father was definitely a morning person. She often wondered where she got her dislike for mornings, since her late mother had been one too. Jax Colton, alpha of the Firestorm Pack, was a striking man with jet black hair and a tall, toned build that made him stand out wherever he went. Over 6 feet tall and strong in every sense of the word, he carried the aura of authority effortlessly. To Skyla, he wasn't just her dad. He was the alpha everyone respected. Skyla finally remembered her manners. "All right, I almost forgot to introduce myself," she thought with a burst of energy, the coffee making her a bit jittery. Her name was Skyla Colton, 15 years old, though not for long. Her 16th birthday was this Friday, and with it came the chance to finally discover her mate. Excitement tingled in her chest just thinking about it. Her mother, however, would not be there to see it. Skyla's mom had passed away years ago during a rogue attack. She had been beautiful, with tall stature, blonde hair, and hazel eyes. Complications during Skyla's birth had made her an only child. Despite their differences in appearance, Skyla loved her mother dearly. Still, she could never quite explain the strange jealousy she used to feel when her mom had Jax's attention. Now it was just her and her father. And though Jax had been chosen by her mother after her own fated mate rejected her, he never found his own true bond. Skyla often thought of the moon goddess, Selene, and how fate worked in mysterious ways. She herself didn't look like either of her parents. Her long, thick red hair, wide chocolate brown eyes, and soft pink lips often drew comments that she must be adopted. But she wasn't. At barely 5'2", she was much shorter than both her parents. Her father's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Ready for school?" Skyla nodded, grabbing her bag. Her father drove her every morning and picked her up in the afternoon. Together, they walked out the front door, buckled their seatbelts, safety first, and started the 15-minute drive toward her school. The ride always gave Skyla time to think. She had been only 8 when her mother died, and since she was 12, she'd been helping her dad by filling in the role of Luna in small ways. Over time, those responsibilities grew. She handled almost everything a Luna would, though she lacked the official title. Being the Alpha's daughter meant the role of future Luna was hers by default. Her pack, the Firestorm Pack, was large and respected. Her school, though, was a different kind of battlefield. It was an all-werewolf private school. Technically, though humans thought of it as just another private institution. Multiple packs attended, 4 in total including hers. Naturally, each pack kept mostly to themselves, and the cliques mirrored human high schools. There were jocks, cheerleaders, nerds, theater kids, and band geeks. But there was one clique humans couldn't imagine, the high-rank clique. That group was reserved for future alphas, betas, gammas, and lunas. Skyla's place among them secured by birth. The cafeteria was chaotic, filled with the tension of 4 different packs in one space. Strict rules prohibited fighting and shifting on school grounds, though enforcement depended on the situation. Minor shoves or insults were handled by the principal, but full-blown fights went straight to the alphas. And with werewolves, fights rarely stayed small. Tensions were especially high with the rival Blood Moon Pack. Their enmity with the Firestorm Pack ran deep, stemming from a tragedy years ago. Skyla had heard the story. Her father and the Blood Moon Alpha had once been best friends. Their lunas had gone into labor on the same day. While Skyla was delivered by C-section, the Blood Moon baby had been born naturally and healthy. Yet, devastatingly, the child died suddenly in the NICU from SIDS. Blinded by grief, the Blood Moon Alpha blamed Jax, claiming his pack had failed to save the baby. Their friendship shattered that day, and hostility replaced brotherhood. Every time Skyla thought about it, her heart ached with a sadness she couldn't explain, as though she had lost something herself. By the time the car pulled into the school's parking lot, her thoughts were heavy. She unbuckled, stepping out of the vehicle. She waved goodbye to her father before turning toward the towering building in front of her. The prison walls of high school awaited. Chapter 2. Skyla stood at her locker, swapping books in and out, already dreading the day ahead. Algebra was next. Just the thought of it made her groan inwardly. She was smart enough, but when it came to algebra, it felt like her brain just shut down. What's the point of putting letters in math? She muttered under her breath as she shoved a notebook inside. Numbers are numbers. Keep it simple. Her grades reflected the struggle. While she carried A's and B's in nearly every other subject, algebra was stubbornly holding her hostage with a C. As she slammed her locker shut, her best friend Taylor appeared at her side, a mischievous glint in her eye. Taylor, the daughter of her father's beta, Will, was the kind of girl who turned heads everywhere she went. With long blonde hair, striking blue eyes, and endless legs, she carried herself with the effortless confidence of someone who had grown up in high rank. She was already 16, though she still hadn't found her mate yet. "Hey girl," Taylor chirped, leaning closer. "Did you hear about Rebecca Edwards getting rejected by her mate?" Skyla's eyes widened. "What? No. Who was her mate?" "Brock Madison," Taylor whispered dramatically, living for the gossip. "Wait, Brock? Isn't he from Blood Moon?" "Oh yeah," Taylor nodded eagerly. "He rejected her because our packs are rivals." Skyla's heart sank. "That's awful. I would never reject my mate, no matter the reason." Taylor wasn't finished. "And get this, Rebecca caught him making out with Gwen Danville." Skyla gasped. "No way. What did she do?" "Girl went for Gwen. But when Gwen tried to fight back, Brock threw her into the wall." Skyla winced. Drama like this was common with their rivalries, but it always left her uneasy. "That's so sad, just because of some silly rift between packs. If my mate were from Blood Moon, I wouldn't care. I'd never reject him. I want my mate no matter what." The warning bell rang, cutting their conversation short. Taylor and Skyla walked into homeroom together, sliding into their seats at the back. The teacher waited the usual 5 minutes for stragglers before taking attendance. Homeroom only lasted about 20 minutes, and before long, the bell rang again, sending them off to their next classes. Skyla gathered her things for algebra, though she wasn't exactly excited. Taylor wasn't in this class with her, but Skyla did have Luke, her GBF, as she liked to call him. Luke was openly gay, quick-witted, and one of her closest friends. Having him in algebra made the class just a little more bearable. Then there was Mia, another good friend, though she was stuck in Taylor's class at the moment. Skyla wished she could have traded algebra for history right about then. After algebra, third period was world history. Skyla didn't have any friends in that class, but she sat up front and quietly took notes, keeping to herself. Nothing exciting ever happened in world history. It was just dates, names, and endless scribbles in her notebook. By the time the lunch bell rang, Skyla's stomach was growling. She met her friends at the cafeteria entrance. Lunch was always a highlight of the day, not just because of the food, but because it was the one time all her friends gathered together. Like most werewolves, Skyla and her friends ate more than the average human. Boys typically consume the most, but even the girls could out-eat a human athlete without trying. The cafeteria offered 4 or 5 options daily: sandwiches, hot meals, salads, and pizza. Unsurprisingly, pizza was the most popular choice. Skyla, however, decided on the sandwich line. Today's main dish was cheeseburgers. She grabbed one, then piled on extras: crispy bacon to layer on the burger, a basket of fries, onion rings, a fruit cup, a slice of strawberry cheesecake, and a bottle of water. Her tray looked like a feast, but she knew she'd finish it. Her pack seating was another matter. Because of the rivalry, Firestorm Wolf sat on the right side of the cafeteria, while Blood Moon stuck to the left. The other 2 packs filled the middle, an unspoken arrangement everyone followed. Skyla's clique, the high-rank group, sat together. At her table were Taylor, Luke, Mia, and a few others: Connor, Taylor's older brother at 17, and Matt and Zane, the 15-year-old identical twins of Gamma Carlos. The twins were unique, sharing one soul. That meant when the time came, they would share a single mate. The very thought made Skyla shudder. "I don't know if I could handle that," she whispered to Taylor once, though she kept her tone light. They were all laughing and eating when a sudden commotion broke out behind them. Skyla turned in her seat, her eyes narrowing as two boys squared off, one from Firestorm and one from Blood Moon. Shouts filled the air, silencing nearby tables. "Take your eyes off my mate," the Firestorm boy snarled. The other was none other than Gage Reed, future alpha of the Blood Moon pack. Trouble seemed to follow him everywhere. "I wasn't even looking at her," Gage shot back, shoving the boy's shoulder. His voice was sharp, his smirk infuriating. "And if I was, it'd only be because I'm wondering how someone like you could be with her." Gasps rippled across the cafeteria. "How dare you insult my mate?" the Firestorm boy growled, fist clenching. Gage leaned in closer, lowering his voice into a taunt. "FYI, I was looking at the girl next to her, wondering if she'd be worth my time. And if your mate wanted to join in, well, I wouldn't complain." That was the breaking point. The Firestorm boy's fist flew, landing squarely on Gage's jaw. Skyla's heart dropped. Punching someone was one thing, but punching an alpha, even a future one, was dangerous. Gage's ego had just been bruised in front of the entire cafeteria. This would not end well. Her chair screeched against the floor as she stood abruptly. Fury surged through her as she stomped toward the fight. With one powerful shove, she pushed both boys apart, her voice ringing across the room. "That's enough. Stop it right now," she shouted, her brown eyes blazing. The Firestorm boy looked down, shame flickering across his face. He muttered something, then quickly retreated to his mate, guiding her out of the cafeteria without another word. But Gage didn't back down. His piercing gaze locked on Skyla, his posture stiff and ready. The way his jaw clenched told her he wasn't finished. And that, Skyla knew, was going to be a problem. Well. "Look who's playing hero again. Always getting in the middle of my fights," Gage sneered, his voice loud enough to make nearby students shrink back. His dark eyes blazed as he glared at Skyla. Skyla squared her shoulders, her temper flaring instantly. "Yeah, well, you're just a jerk whose ego got hurt, because deep down, you know what you said was wrong." The insult hit its mark. His fist clenched tighter, his chest rising and falling with sharp breaths as his glare intensified. Gage had been furious with her plenty of times before, and she with him, but one unspoken line had always remained. He had never raised a hand to her. "My ego bruised," he barked, his voice dripping with mockery. "Huh, at least my dad isn't a baby killer." Skyla froze. Her entire body went rigid. Oh no, he didn't just say that. Her blood boiled, and before she could stop herself, words flew from her lips like venom. He did not kill that baby. It was Sid's. It wasn't his fault. And you know what? Your baby sister probably would have turned out to be a shallow brat anyway. The last part wasn't true. She hadn't meant it, but the words were already out, sharp and cutting. She only said them to hurt him back, to play fire with fire. Gage's expression twisted, his fury snapping like a storm. He growled low in his chest, the sound chilling, his voice rough with rage. "You witch, you know what? Who would ever want to mate with a father who can't even keep a baby alive? Your mate will most definitely reject you." His words sliced her to the core. He knew how much she dreamed of her mate, how she counted down the days until her 16th birthday. And he had attacked her where it hurt most, her hope, her heart. Red-hot anger surged through Skyla. Without thinking, her fist shot forward, colliding with his eye. The impact made him roar, his head snapping back. Gage didn't fight girls, not physically. He'd argue, yell, taunt, but violence? Never. But Skyla wasn't finished. He shoved her, sending her stumbling to the ground. The cafeteria gasped collectively. Skyla pushed herself up, her hand stinging as she slapped him hard across the face. Without hesitation, she delivered a swift kick to his most vulnerable spot. Gage toppled over, clutching himself, his roar echoing through the cafeteria walls. "Miss Skyla Colton and Gage Reed, my office. Now." Principal Jones's furious voice cut through the chaos. His commanding tone froze the entire room into silence. Skyla stomped toward the principal's office, her heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, Gage followed stiffly, his pride wounded, his glare still burning holes in her back. Inside the office, they sat in separate chairs, both still fuming. Principal Jones's voice was sharp as he looked at them. I am going to have to inform your fathers about this. Skyla's blood drained from her face. Gage paled too. The reality sank in. Her hitting Gage could be seen as a challenge, an act of war between their packs. Mr. Jones, please, Skyla begged, her voice cracking slightly. That won't be necessary. This won't happen again, I promise. But the principal was firm. He had already placed the calls. When their fathers arrived, the tension in the air was suffocating. Thankfully, they were kept separate, never crossing paths inside the office. Still, Skyla trembled under her father's stern stare. Young lady, do you have any idea what you could have caused? Jax's voice was low, controlled, but edged with fury. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered, ashamed. She had disappointed him, and that knowledge cut deeper than anything Gage had said. Through broken breaths, she explained everything, the insults, the taunts, the push that led to her explosion. Her father's expression hardened when she recounted Gage's cruel words about her mate. Gage, on the other hand, had to face his own father, Alpha Jacob Reed of the Blood Moon Pack. Jacob had once been Skyla's father's closest friend, but grief had turned him bitter. His son Gage carried that anger like a shadow. Jacob had only 2 children, the firstborn, Gage, and a daughter who had passed as a baby. Since then, his Luna had spiraled into deep depression, locking herself away in her chambers, rarely seen by anyone. It was tragic, a wound that had never healed. Skyla's punishment, however, was immediate and personal. 3 days of detention and worse, no coffee. Her eyes widened in horror at that final decree. No coffee, she gasped. Dad, that's cruel. Jax raised a brow, unamused. Actions have consequences, Skyla. The next 3 days, she realized, were going to be absolute torture. After school ended, Skyla didn't have time to sulk. Instead, she went straight to the pack house to help her father with Luna responsibilities. The pack house wasn't a home in the traditional sense. It was more like a town hall, the heart of their community. It hosted meetings, ceremonies, and the offices of the higher ranks. Omegas worked there daily, cleaning, preparing, and cooking meals. The massive dining hall could seat hundreds, and it was open to anyone in need. Wolves who couldn't afford meals could always eat there, no questions asked. Skyla admired that about her father's leadership. He made sure no one in their pack went hungry. She checked in with the Omegas first, offering encouragement and smiles, making sure everything ran smoothly. Her presence was steadying. Even as young as she was, she carried herself with a quiet authority that others respected. From there, she moved on to other Luna tasks, reviewing schedules, assisting with planning, and ensuring order in the pack house. She wasn't the Luna yet, but she was already living the role, learning piece by piece what it meant to lead. And though the fight with Gage still burned in her mind, she pushed it aside. She had responsibilities now, responsibilities bigger than one heated battle in the cafeteria. Still deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Not with Gage Reed. Chapter 3. The next day already felt miserable for Skyla. She hadn't had her coffee that morning, and it was hitting her hard. She swore she would never throw a punch again if it meant being deprived of her daily caffeine. If anyone hadn't figured it out by now, she was undeniably a coffee addict. Instead of her usual steaming mug, she sat in the kitchen with a glass of orange juice, sulking. "Good morning, sweetheart," her father greeted as he came into the kitchen, cheerful as always. Skyla, however, didn't feel it was a good morning at all. She silently wondered how he could be so upbeat at this dreadful hour. Her dad casually grabbed a banana, peeled it, and began eating. She refused to respond, staying stubbornly silent. No coffee, no conversation. What kind of punishment was that? When he finished eating, he tossed the peel in the trash. "Are you ready to go?" he asked. Skyla simply gave him a thumbs up. She was awake, sure, and perfectly capable of speaking, but she was too annoyed. Silent treatment felt like the only fair response. Her father sighed but didn't push. They got in the car, buckled up, and he started the engine, pulling onto the road towards school. As they drove, he brought up pack matters. "So, this week we'll have some visitors from another pack. I need you to arrange a place for them to stay," he explained. Skyla finally broke her silence. "Okay, who is it, may I ask?" If it hadn't been about pack responsibilities, she would have stayed quiet. "Alpha Rick and his beta," her father answered. "All right, should I set them up at our house since he's an alpha? And what pack are they from?" "They'll be staying with us," he confirmed. "They're from the Blue Moon pack." Skyla frowned. "Why are they coming here?" "Blue Moon is 2 states away." Her dad kept his eyes on the road. "We might be negotiating a treaty with them." "So, potential allies then," Skyla thought. As they pulled up to her school, her father added, "One more thing. No shifting while they're here. It's for your own safety." She gave him a small nod. She understood all too well why he insisted on that rule. Skyla wasn't just any wolf. She was rare, a pure white wolf. That alone set her apart. White wolves carried unique powers, each one different. Her gift was healing. She could heal any wound, something that made her invaluable and vulnerable. But there was a trade-off. Her natural werewolf healing was drastically slower, almost human-like, because her energy was tied to her gift. Wolves could catch illnesses just like humans, colds, flu, even serious conditions like cancer. Most healed quickly. Skyla didn't. And because of her gift, some people sought white wolves to use as weapons or tools. Her father was always careful to protect her, keeping her secret closely guarded. With Blue Moon's alpha visiting, he didn't want to risk anyone discovering what she truly was. Inside the school, Skyla walked to her locker where Luke and Mia were waiting. "Hey guys," she greeted. "Girl, tell this one that Jason Momoa is way hotter than Ian Somerhalder," Luke declared dramatically. He was always the over-the-top one. "They're both hot," Skyla said, trying to reason with them. The debate carried on, playful and loud, until Taylor arrived, armed with fresh gossip as always. Their chatter was cut short by the warning bell, pushing them toward their classrooms. At that very moment, Jack sat in a meeting, half listening as Will droned on about pack finances. The man's voice could drag forever, and Jax felt his patience thinning. "Look, Will, let's wrap this up," Jax finally said, cutting him off. Thankfully, the report ended 10 minutes later. Just in time, too. It was already 2:30. School had just let out. Jax's thoughts immediately shifted to Skyla, his daughter. He needed to pick her up. Skyla was everything to him. He had lost his mate years ago during a rogue attack, when Skyla was only 8. His mate, Grace, had been helping escort pack members into the safety bunker when one of the rogues struck her down. The memory still haunted him. Grace had been his chosen mate, not his fated one. His parents had pressured him into it, because the pack needed a Luna. Deep down, he had wanted his true fated mate, but she never came. Even now, he still hadn't found her. When Skyla was 12, she insisted on stepping into her mother's role. She wanted to honor Grace by helping the pack as their Luna. At first, Jax resisted. She was too young, too precious. But Skyla's determination eventually wore him down. Now she handled responsibilities naturally, as if born for them. Every day after school, she threw herself into Luna duties. She helped Omegas, mothers, orphan pups, and organized every pack celebration, balls, birthdays, ceremonies. She greeted and cared for guests when they stayed. She did it all with grace. Jax couldn't deny how proud he was of her. Her birthday was approaching Friday. That day, she would discover her mate. Skyla had never dated, always holding out for the one destiny chose for her. Jax was both proud and nervous. For her birthday, he had allowed her to throw a party and invite the entire school, including other pack students. Every alpha had approved, except Blood Moon Pack. They were forbidden. The thought brought a heaviness to Jax's chest. The anniversary of that night lingered. He had not only lost Grace, but his best friend as well. Jacob, devastated by his daughter's death, blamed Jax. Consumed by grief, Jacob had never forgiven him. Jax shook the memory away as he pulled into the school parking lot. Skyla climbed into the car, still stubbornly refusing to speak unless necessary. She was still mad about her coffee punishment, but Jax knew her well. Coffee was the way to her heart. Far away, Alpha Rick stood in his office with a sly, knowing smirk. He could feel it. The presence of the one he had been hunting for years, a pure white wolf. He had been searching relentlessly, and at last, he believed he had found her. 3 months earlier, one of his pack members' mates, originally from Firestorm Pack, had whispered of seeing a she-wolf shift into pure white fur. That rumor had been all the confirmation he needed. Now, under the guise of alliance negotiations, he had arranged a meeting with Firestorm's Alpha. His true intention was far darker. He would find this white wolf. He would take her. And once he harnessed her power, he would make his pack the strongest in the world. Chapter 4. Skyla somehow endured the torment of 3 long days without coffee. The silence she had held against her father was finally over. By the time Friday arrived, her mood had shifted. But before diving into her birthday morning, her mind drifted back over the events of the week. After Tuesday, she had arranged for their guests to stay at their house. Alpha Rick unsettled her deeply. His eyes seemed to linger on her longer than they should, unsettling in ways she couldn't quite put into words. Her father noticed too. The moment he caught Rick staring, his sharp tone cut through the air, forcing the Alpha to look away. Yet even then, Rick did not truly stop. Skyla still caught him glancing when her father wasn't around, when he thought no one was watching. Sometimes he even muttered comments that sent the wrong kind of chills down her spine. Skyla kept her distance, never letting herself be cornered. Thankfully, the guests finally left yesterday, and with them, a weight lifted. But even after they were gone, an unease lingered. More than once, she felt the heavy weight of unseen eyes trailing her. Every time she turned, no one was there. The paranoia clung to her like a shadow, whispering that something terrible was drawing near. She forced herself to dismiss it, convincing her mind that it was nothing more than nerves. The rest of her days were filled with Luna responsibilities, and surprisingly, she found herself enjoying them. Her favorite moments were spent with the orphan pups, who had a special place within the pack. Their laughter and innocent trust always melted her heart. Despite the tension of the week, her routine settled into something resembling normal, at least as normal as life could be for a girl on the cusp of her 16th birthday. And now that day had arrived. Friday, her birthday. It was the one morning of the year she woke up without struggle, full of a rare, buzzing excitement. Of course, that didn't mean she'd give up her ritual of 3 steaming cups of coffee. Skyla considered herself a proud coffee addict, and she never intended to quit. She leapt from bed, humming with energy. The shower washed away the remnants of sleep, and soon she was wrapped in a towel, drying herself off. Her reflection in the mirror stared back as she brushed her teeth, blow-dried her hair, and carefully styled it. A light touch of makeup followed, bringing out the glow of her mood. Today, she felt good. No, she felt unstoppable. When it came time to dress, she selected a mid-thigh, high-waisted baby pink skirt paired with a white short-sleeve crop top. A sleek black leather jacket draped over her shoulders completed the look, matched with flat booties. For a finishing touch, she slipped on a delicate necklace and bracelet. Grabbing her school bag, she opened her bedroom door and froze. The most heavenly aroma struck her senses. Coffee, yes, but richer, layered with the golden sweetness of honey. Her heart leapt. Dad must be downstairs brewing. She hurried down, anticipation fueling her steps. But when she entered the kitchen, it was empty. No brewing pot, no coffee on the stove. The scent, however, was everywhere. Confused, Skyla made her own coffee. As she poured, she realized there were two distinct scents. One was her normal everyday coffee, the other intoxicating. The honey-like undertone clung to the air, more alluring than anything she'd ever smelled. Her instincts stirred, urging her to follow it. Before she could move, the aroma intensified, so strong it felt as though the source was standing in the room with her. "Good morning, sweetheart," her father greeted, his voice warm and casual, just as always. But Skyla barely heard him. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for the source. The moment her gaze landed on her father, realization hit. The smell wasn't around him, it was him. Her father's gaze locked with hers. Time froze. In that instant, two worlds collided. The air shifted, heavy and electrified. The universe shrank until it was only the two of them, bound in silence. Her chest tightened. This was no ordinary recognition. The bond clicked into place with impossible strength. The mate bond. But this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Not now. Not this way. No, this was an imprint. Rare. Almost mythical. The revelation struck like ice water. Her face drained of color. Her heart raced as the unthinkable truth seared into her mind. Her father, her mate. The mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. Coffee splashed across the tiles. The sharp sound jolted them both back into reality. They dropped to their knees at the same time, frantically gathering shards. Their hands brushed. Sparks erupted through Skyla's skin, a rush of fire and lightning flooding her senses. Her breath caught as her eyes flickered to him. He froze too, the same reaction mirrored in his gaze. Snapping herself out of it, she jerked her hand back, forcing distance. Once the mess was cleaned, they rose slowly, staring at each other in disbelief. This couldn't be real. The moon goddess would never pair her with her own father. It had to be a mistake. But imprints weren't mistakes. They were unbreakable. An imprint was deeper than a mate bond. It was absolute. A collision of souls. Once it formed, there was no rejection, no undoing. It bound two people together as best friends, protectors, confidants, and more. Their hearts beat as one. Their very existence intertwined. Unlike a regular mate bond, it didn't require marking or mating to complete. The connection ran deeper, eternal, rare, irrevocable, forever. Skyla's breath quickened. Suddenly, her neck burned. She reached up instinctively, her fingers brushing the heated skin. Across from her, her father, Jax, was doing the same. Shock deepened as she saw initials etched faintly on his marking spot. Tradition said that once a mate marked their other, the initials of their partner would appear in that spot. But they hadn't marked each other. The imprint had forged the bond without it. The problem? The initials weren't hers. Her own were SC Skyla Colton. The mark on Jax read MR. Her voice trembled. "Dad, I don't understand. How is this possible?" Jax's gaze flickered from her neck to her wide eyes. She pulled out her phone, snapped a picture, and froze when she saw it. His initials, JC, glowing faintly on her skin. I don't know. "I'm sorry," Jax whispered, his voice thick with confusion. "Why does your mark have MR when mine has yours?" Skyla asked, her voice breaking. She showed him the image on her phone. His jaw tightened, confusion mirroring her own. "I don't know," he admitted at last. His tone was calm, steady, but through the bond, she could feel his panic raging beneath the surface. "Let me look into this. I'll find answers." Skyla swallowed hard, her pulse hammering in her ears. The world felt as though it had tilted on its axis. No matter how calm his words sounded, she knew through the bond that her father was just as shaken as she was. The silence between them lingered like an invisible wall. Let's get you to school, shall we?" Jax said awkwardly, his voice softer than usual, almost uncertain. It felt strange for her to hear him call himself Dad now. Stranger still to think of him as Jax. Neither fit comfortably. Perhaps for now she would simply call him Alpha, until the storm inside her calmed and she could figure out how to exist in this new reality. It wasn't like she had a choice. She would have to learn to accept him as her mate and somehow stop seeing him as her father. The drive to school passed in suffocating silence. Neither spoke, neither even breathed too loud. When the car finally pulled up, she opened the door and stepped out without a word. The door closed, and she walked into the building in a daze, the morning pressing down on her shoulders like a weight. At her locker, the sight of familiar faces waiting almost made her breathe again. Taylor, Mia, and Luke stood there with bright smiles and colorful bags in hand. "Happy birthday," Mia chirped, holding out a Starbucks cup like it was treasure. She accepted it gratefully. Oh, thank goodness. She needed caffeine. Without thinking, she latched her lips onto the straw and gulped down nearly half in one go, even though it was steaming hot. "Dang, girl. Slow it down," Luke laughed, eyebrows shooting up. "Sorry, guys. Rough morning," she admitted, forcing a small smile. Mia thrust her gift forward next, excitement dancing in her eyes. Inside the wrapping was a tiny pink sparkly collar, definitely meant for a pet. She blinked, confused. She didn't own one, but before she could ask, Taylor handed her another gift. This time a pet bed. Okay. Finally, Luke came forward dramatically, like he'd been waiting for his big reveal. From behind his back, he pulled out a pet carrier with a bow on top. In his other hand was the fluffiest Snow White kitten she had ever seen. He placed it gently in her arms. Her heart melted instantly. "Oh, she's so cute. Guys, this is just perfect. I love it." "You're welcome, girl." "It's a she," Taylor corrected proudly. The kitten mewed softly, curling into her chest as though she belonged there all along. Warmth spread through her, easing some of the tension that had followed her from the car. But then she noticed Luke's eyes drop to her neck. Here it came. He smirked knowingly. "I can see why you needed that coffee now," he teased. Mia's eyes widened. "Wait, did you find your mate this morning?" Taylor jumped in quickly, her voice low but curious. "So who is it?" "Who's JC?" Panic flared inside her. "Guys, can we not?" "And no, it's not like that, Luke," she said firmly. Taylor tilted her head. "Is he from Blood Moon? Is your dad not happy with him?" She cringed at the word dad paired with alpha. It didn't sit right anymore. "Not after this morning. No, it's she stammered, then finally blurted, "We imprinted, okay." All three of them froze before saying in unison, "Wow." "Look," she said quickly, gripping the kitten closer as though it were a shield. "All you need to know for now is that it's complicated." That was enough. They exchanged glances and nodded, wisely dropping the subject. The rest of the day blurred past in classrooms and lectures she barely absorbed. She kept her head down, surviving each period as if it were a chore to be checked off. Every tick of the clock pulled her closer to the final bell, closer to the end of a day she wished she could erase. And still, beneath it all, the echo of that word followed her, imprinted. Chapter 5. There was no way. Jax had just finished dropping off his daughter at school, or at least the girl who had been his daughter. She wasn't just that anymore. She was his mate, his imprint. The thought tangled itself in his chest, pulling tight. How? Why? When she called him dad that morning, the word had sounded wrong, jarring in his ears. She couldn't call him that anymore. Not after this. It didn't feel right. Skyla was beautiful. She had always been, but this morning, when he walked out of his bedroom and was hit with that intoxicating cinnamon scent, sweeter, richer than anything he had ever experienced, it had stopped him in his tracks. He'd followed it instinctively, needing to find the source. Little did he know that it would lead him to Skyla. His Skyla. And on her 16th birthday, no less. The imprinting had stunned him. There were so many things wrong with it. First, he was 33 years old, and Skyla was only 16. 17 years apart. A gap wide enough to raise eyebrows. Still, it was something he believed he could overlook, even accept. Second, he was her father, or had been in every way that mattered. They had only ever seen each other through that lens. Sure, he had pushed aside the occasional inappropriate thought that had crept into his mind over the years, never daring to acknowledge it. But now his mind was full of them, unrelenting, insistent. And third, the initials. His mark bore hers, but hers did not match his. How was that possible? Was it some sort of mistake? But Jax had waited years, his whole life, for his fated mate. This couldn't be a mistake. It had to mean something. Determined, he headed for the Packhouse library. If there was an answer, it had to be there. On the way, he pulled out his phone. Every year on this day, he made the same call. And every year, it ended the same. Still, he tried. The line rang before a voice answered, weary and sharp. Hello. Hey, Jacob, it's me. Jax. Jax. How many times do I have to tell you to stop calling me on this day? Is your daughter enjoying celebrating the death of mine? Are you? Jacob's voice cracked between anger and grief. Jax closed his eyes. Jacob, I know you don't mean that. I call for the same reason every year. I just want my friend back. Well, it won't happen this year either, Jacob replied, the sorrow in his tone undeniable. Jax's chest tightened. Sometimes he wondered if pride was all that stood in the way now, but he never said it aloud. He never would. Quietly, he ended the call and stepped into the library, gathering several books from the section on mates before settling into a chair to read. Lunchtime arrived, but Skyla had no appetite. After everything that had happened that morning, her stomach was in knots. She picked up only a bottle of water and headed to her usual table. That night was supposed to be her birthday party. The entire school was invited, everyone except Blood Moon. The thought should have excited her, but instead, it only made her restless. All day long, her friends had tried to pry the identity of her mate from her, but she kept her lips sealed. She needed to talk to Alpha first. Yes, that was what she had decided to call him for now. Maybe she could try Alfie as a softer nickname, but even in her head, it didn't sound right. Alpha fit best. By now, the news had spread across campus. Everyone knew she had found her mate. And because of the mark on her neck, they all assumed she had rushed into things the moment they'd met. Only Taylor, Mia, and Luke knew the truth, that it had been an imprint. Whispers followed her in the halls, curious glances trailing her wherever she went. Everyone was trying to guess the mate's identity based on the initials. If only they knew. If only they understood. Hey, Sky, is that all you're having? Taylor asked, concern lining her face as she glanced at the water bottle. What's wrong? Skyla shrugged weakly. Yeah, my stomach's in knots. Maybe it's just nerves about tonight. Maybe you should call your dad to come get you. Rest a little before the party, Mia suggested gently. The word dad made Skyla's stomach flip for a different reason. Alpha, that was who he was now. And maybe Mia was right. Maybe she should call him. Yes, I'll call him, she agreed softly. When she dialed, his voice was immediate, concerned. Hello, Skyla. Are you okay? No, my stomach is in knots. I don't feel good. He sighed audibly. All right, I'm on my way. Just wait at the front of the school for me. Okay, she whispered. Skyla, is this about the mate, the imprint? Her throat tightened, tears threatening, but she held them back. No, I just want to go home, that's all. Please just come get me. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said firmly. She hung up quickly. Of course it was because of him, but she wasn't about to say that. Outside, she sat on the bench near the entrance, clutching her water bottle. That was when Gage appeared, his smirk venomous. Well, look who's the joke now, he sneered. Skyla rolled her eyes, exhaustion heavy in her chest. Go away, Gage. I don't have to explain anything to you. What's the matter? Did your mate finally come to his senses? Planning to reject you, he taunted cruelly. Gage, just leave me alone, she warned, voice firm. Or what? You can't do anything. Her patience snapped. You know what? My mate can't reject me. We imprinted, and I did not do anything wrong with him. You have no idea what's going on, so just go away. Tears slipped down her cheeks, her outburst echoing louder than she intended. For a moment, Gage looked stunned. But then he smirked again, nastier than before. I feel sorry for your mate. He stuck with you. His words dropped low, cutting like a knife. That was it. Skyla's fist shot forward before she could think, connecting with his face. Fury flared in Gage's eyes. He grabbed her roughly, slamming her against the brick wall. His growl rumbled through the air, teeth bared. But in the next heartbeat, he was gone, thrown across the ground. Skyla looked up, heart pounding, and there stood Alpha. Gage, if you ever touch her again, I will see it as an act of war, Alpha commanded, his voice sharp and dangerous, his eyes glowing red with power. Gage snarled back, his own eyes shifting color in defiance. But when Alpha's glow deepened to an ominous purple, the fight drained from him. Do you understand? Alpha's tone left no room for argument. Yes, Gage muttered bitterly, finally backing down. Alpha turned immediately to Skyla. Are you okay? She nodded quickly, though her legs trembled beneath her. Without another word, she walked with him to the car. They buckled in and drove home in tense silence. The moment they pulled into the driveway, Skyla bolted from the car, desperate to hide her tears. Inside, she rushed for the stairs, but his voice stopped her. Skyla, wait. She froze, shoulders shaking. What is it? Am I in trouble? She asked through sobs, still not turning around. No, you're not in trouble, Alpha said firmly. I meant what I said. If it happens again, I will see it as an act of war. His tone was deadly serious, every word carrying the weight of his promise. That was enough to break her. Skyla turned and threw herself into his arms, clinging tightly as the tears finally fell. She felt the sparks race through her entire body from the hug. He embraced her tightly, and without breaking the hold, guided them both toward the couch. Sitting down with her still in his lap, she clung to him as though letting go would shatter her completely. Her face stayed buried in his neck while she cried her heart out. His hand moved in steady, soothing motions up and down her back, his scent surrounding her, the warmth of his touch and the sparks grounding her until little by little, her sobs began to ease. When she finally pulled back slightly, her arms remained looped around his neck. Alpha gently wiped away the lingering tears from her cheeks and tucked a strand of hair back behind her ear. His voice was low, almost pained. I'm sorry, he whispered. Her brows furrowed. Why? This isn't your fault. I know, sweetheart. It's just the situation. His eyes held regret as he searched for words. I don't really know what else to say. She gave a small nod of understanding. So what do we do? We try, he answered with quiet certainty. It will take time to get there, but eventually it will. He wanted to try, to make it work. And for the first time, she realized she did too. She hadn't known that until he spoke it aloud, but hearing it gave her clarity. She wanted to try as well. A little laugh slipped out of her, surprising even herself. The sound made Alpha raise a brow at her suspiciously. And what exactly is so funny? Nothing, she said quickly, cheeks flushing. It's just this explains a lot. I mean, what kind of daughter gets jealous of her own mother and thinks her, never mind? She trailed off, embarrassed, her face burning. There was no way she was admitting that she had always secretly thought he was attractive. Alpha smirked. So you think I'm attractive? Her mouth fell open in horror. Apparently, she had said that last part out loud. Heat flooded her cheeks as she looked away, wishing the earth would swallow her whole. They talked for several more minutes, slowly unraveling the truth neither had wanted to admit before. She discovered she wasn't the only one who had struggled with thoughts that felt far from appropriate. He had them too. It was unsettling, but also strangely comforting to know she wasn't alone in her confusion. Together, they decided the only way forward was to take things slow, to ease into this new relationship dynamic, and let go of the old one piece by piece. At the very least, she thought with a wry smile, she couldn't exactly be grounded anymore. That was one upside. She told him she wouldn't be calling him Dad anymore. He agreed, saying it was a good first step. Still, she admitted it would take some time before she could bring herself to call him Jax. Until then, she would stick to Alpha. He didn't like that part, so after a little back and forth, they compromised on Alfie. The name softened his features instantly. He said it was cute, and she had to admit, she could live with that one. It was still strange, this whole situation, but at least now they both knew what they wanted. Or maybe it was just the imprint talking. No one had found an explanation for it yet, and it had only been half a day. Time would tell what it really meant. The next challenge would be telling the pack. They agreed she could confide in her 3 closest friends, but no one else. Not until they figured out an explanation first. Until then, it would remain their secret. She knew questions would eventually rise about the marks they both bore, but they would deal with that when the time came. Speaking of marks, he revealed he had a theory about why his bore different initials than hers. But when she pressed him for details, he only gave a sly look and told her she would have to wait. Later that evening, since she was home, she decided to begin setting up for her birthday party. Normally, they did a smaller, more personal celebration a day or 2 after the actual date. There were reasons for that, chief among them being that Alfie still carried guilt from what had happened years ago with his old friend. He hated celebrating while knowing someone he cared for was grieving. But this year would be different. The celebration was planned for next Saturday, and it wouldn't be just for her. She and Mia had finally decided to throw a joint birthday party, something they had dreamed about for years. Mia's 16th birthday fell on the same day, and now, at last, they would celebrate together. The thought made her heart lift a little, excitement slipping in despite everything else. Epilogue. Years passed, and the bond between Skyla and Jax only grew stronger. To the pack, they were fated, chosen by the moon goddess herself, and no one dared question it. But deep inside, Alpha Jax carried a secret that burned heavier than any war. He knew Skyla had not been born as his daughter. He knew the night of her birth had been shrouded in a lie, a desperate mistake made by trembling human hands. And though every day she looked into his eyes with love, he feared the truth would one day shatter her world again. So he swore to himself he would take this secret to his grave. But secrets have a way of clawing their way into the light. The question isn't if Skyla will ever discover the truth, but when. And when she does, nothing will ever be the same. Thank you so much, family, for staying with me till the end of this story. Your love and support mean everything. Now I really want to hear from you. Do you think Skyla was right to accept Jax as her mate, even though she grew up calling him father? If you were in her shoes, would you give in to the imprint bond or fight it no matter what? And tell me, should Jax confess the truth about Skyla being swapped at birth or keep it buried forever? What do you think will happen if she finds out she was never really his daughter? I'll be waiting for all your thoughts in the comments. Family, I can't wait to read what you think.